we're putting together the dream teams that we can. And now there's some guys that maybe at the start of the year we might have discounted and ignored altogether who are shaping up to potentially help you really win some championships. So we'll talk about guys that are potentially league winners, or maybe they're not. Maybe we're just sort of blowing smoke here. The first one, though, is David Montgomery, who has been really great for the last 3 weeks. The next 2 weeks, Kimmy, has a pretty favorable schedule with the Vikings and the Jaguars. Could it be that David Montgomery is going to be on a few championship rosters this year?
I think he could be. Like you mentioned, such good matchups against Minnesota, Jacksonville, and then finishing with the Green Bay Packers. All of those teams are incredibly susceptible to the run game and have allowed a ton of points to fantasy running backs. Now, he's had 70 yards, 2 100-yard rushes in the last 3 weeks with 24-plus fantasy points. This is a guy that, if you're in the fantasy playoffs and you have a running back or any player that scores over like 20 fantasy points, you should yell and scream and stomp and cheer, because that is exactly what you need to secure a fantasy championship. And I do have a feeling that David Montgomery could be a guy helping coast people into a championship win.
I'm on board, and I guess I'm excited about this because last year I was a big David Montgomery fan and it just didn't really work out. He was just kind of meh last year. So this year I felt like, I was burned. So I felt like maybe he was a little bit closer to his ceiling than I thought. And I just kind of had shied away from him in a lot of drafts, but he really has picked things up, especially since the injury to Tariq Cohen. He's starting to get more opportunities, starting to get more targets, and do a lot more in both phases of the offense. And then the schedule just works out so well for him that I'm back on board. I'm back to where I was at the start of last season, that I'm starting to buy into David Montgomery again. So yay for that. I do think though that folks who have him, if you're still in the playoffs, he's going to carry you a long way. And for those of you who are in the consolation bracket, well, he'll help you get through that as well too. It works both ways. Similarly, T.Y. Hilton, and we've talked about the Colts. We talked about their passing game and how, sometime in September, October, I had just kind of said, you know what, I think I'm done with them. I'm not going near it. T.Y. Hilton had been dropped off a ton of rosters, understandably, but 3 weeks in a row for T.Y. Hilton, he's put together some really nice performances. The schedule, not terrible down the stretch. Eugene Marquis Hilton, could be that guy to kind of get you over the hump, huh?
I mean, if you have not dropped T.Y. Hilton, then you should be very happy that he can get you over the hump. Like you said, a lot of us just completely lost faith because his production wasn't there. He really wasn't delivering, but he's coming off of a 2-score game, over 25 fantasy points versus the Las Vegas Raiders. This is his 3rd straight week leading the team in receiving yardage, also having 4 touchdowns in that 3-week span. If you need T.Y. Hilton moving forward, like you said, there's a decent matchup schedule. Maybe he could be the dude who's the sneaky one that leads you to a fantasy championship if you didn't drop him.
If you didn't drop him, or if he is available in your league, go check the waiver wire. I mean, chances are he might be picked up, but it's always worth a shot, right? Because if he's out there, there's a very good chance he really could step in there and be productive for you. Look, I didn't think we'd be saying this after September, but here we are in December and things have changed. Just a reminder too, that it is a long fantasy season and things that we believe in September don't always turn out to be true in December. All right, last one. All right, there we go. Mike Gesicki. My rundown got stuck. Mike Gesicki, who, again, I was big on at the start of the year, and then middle of the season, he just was kind of letting people down. But he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games. I'm still hesitant, Kimmy. I'm still a little bit nervous, but can you tell me a story where Mike Gesicki ends up as a league winner?
Okay, ready, Marcus? Once upon a time, there was a tight end named Mike Gesicki. His starting quarterback was Tua. Tua likes his tight ends. There you go. That's the story. That's all you need. Like you said, he's had 4 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks, back-to-back 23-plus fantasy point games, 3 games in a row with over 11 fantasy points. We talk on this show every single week about the tight end situation, right? Tight ends are not so hot this season, unless you have Travis Kelce. I mean, Darren Waller's kind of up there too, but honestly, unless you have Travis Kelce, your tight end situation has been a little bit of a head scratcher and really annoying and confusing. Mike Gesicki could be the tight end to help people get into the fantasy playoffs and hopefully secure a fantasy championship. So I know you want to be scared, Marcus, but Mike Gesicki has been delivering, and Tua clearly likes to throw him the ball. I think he has way bigger of a higher upside over guys like Devontae Parker on the Miami Dolphins. So even though you're scared, maybe you got to rock with Mike.
That was the thing that I noticed yesterday, that it does seem like Tua is good for Mike Gesicki. And I used to believe that tight ends and young quarterbacks kind of went together like chicken and waffles. I think statistically that has proven to not necessarily be true. But in this case, I think it is. I think Tua Tagovailoa has really kind of formed a rapport with Mike Gesicki. Seems to be throwing him the ball, especially down near the end zone. Gesicki with 2 touchdowns yesterday. And in a world where, as I always say, we are thirsty for tight end production, maybe this is one to maybe this is a thirst trap worth getting caught in with this Mike Gesicki thing. So maybe I will say that I'm still skeptical because I don't want to get my heart broken, but I'm willing to jump in and take the shot with Mike Gesicki for the rest of the year.
One other thing, that we do have to be mindful of is that at the end of the game during the fourth quarter, he did sustain a shoulder injury. It's Monday. Yes. We're still awaiting all the results from the MRI, So obviously keep an eye on that. But if he is healthy, I do think he could be a go for the remainder of the season.